Hey guys, today we're going to be taking a look at the new USD exporter built into Blender 2.82 that was just released. We're going to be taking a look at how you can export out a scene from Blender, and we're going to take a look at, for this example at least, we're going to take a look at importing it into Houdini in its new Hydra engine. So without further ado, let's get started. So to start off with, I have this scene that I created in Blender. It is a high poly version of a military radio. It is around 1.3 million triangles, and it runs fairly well in Blender. We've also got 2 area lights set up, and in our shading we've got an HDRI as well as our camera. So what I'm going to do is, if you look in the collections, you can see everything that's enabled. If I just press A, making sure everything I have is enabled, you can go up to File, Export, Universal Scene Description, USD. I just like to press F4. That's a shortcut you can do wherever. So I'm going to maximize this. You can choose where you're going to export. I made a USD folder. I'm going to just name it military radio hard surface.usd. Now there's some settings that you're going to want to go through. So for my model at least, I also have a low poly model, as well as some other empty files in there that I don't necessarily need to export. So I'm going to hit selection only. You've got an animation check mark. So when you check that, it's going to export the entire animation range. If you don't have that checked, it's just going to export the one frame. So this doesn't have any animation. If I export it with animation, that would be just kind of a waste of memory. Hair is exported as curves in USD. Obviously there's no hair on this radio, or I hope not. You've got the UV maps, so that's exporting each of the UV maps in the export. You could turn that off if you wanted to save some space, if you're going to be doing some unwrapping in a different program. That's an example I can think of for disabling that. Normals, again, if you have custom normals, or you have your normals shaded the way you want in Blender, that's great to have enabled. But if you're going to be generating normals or modifying the mesh anyways, then you could again turn this off to save some space. And then materials. So this actually exports the viewport material settings and assigns it into whatever engine uses that. So if I go to this, if I zoom into this guy here, I go to the material, you can see metal matte is this here. The viewport display, it's not white, it's more of a silvery color, 100% metallic and half roughness. If I go to, say, plastic, there's no metallic, and 0.4 roughness, and the orange. So again, if I select all of this and export that out, that is what you're going to see as a material in the USD engine. So I got selection only. I use settings for viewport. I leave that on. Render is, say you have a subdivision surface level that is above, say you have 2 in the viewport but you have 3 in the render. You would set it for the render. However, I want to just view it in the viewport, so I'm going to choose those settings because those work for me in Blender. There's also an experimental option for instancing. So if you have multiple objects, say particles or something that are the exact same object, they're just scattered around, if you enable instancing, those should be instanced reference to one object. So that again is going to save some space, maybe save some performance depending on how you're doing that. So I'm going to just export USD. Okay. Alright, so now I am in Houdini. So I just opened up a fresh Houdini file. I'm going to change this view from object. I'm going to change that to stage. So this, you notice the background and everything changes. This is the USD engine in Houdini. I'm actually going to change my view to a LOPS view. So that's got the view here, and it's also got the scene graph tree, so you can see basically all the layers of the USD file. So what I'm going to do is hit right click, type in file, oh my bad, it reset me to the object view. Make sure that you're in the stage view, that will get a little bit confusing. So file, drop the file down. It's going to ask you what your file is. So I'm going to go to my Blender project, military radio, USD, oh, not reference, or render, USD, USDC. And now you can see that it imported 2 area lights, a camera, and all of the mesh. So I'm going to go to camera view. You can see it's kind of dark. It doesn't have like a skylight or anything. It didn't import the HDRI, so I'm going to right click, dome light, connect that up there. This isn't a Houdini tutorial, by the way, so feel free to just follow along. But this is just basically to show how the USD file gets exported out into a different engine. So I am just going to load in. I don't really like the way that the dome light affects the scene, but I'm just going to show you. So HDRI, let's do a studio HDR. It's 8K, it's kind of overkill for this, but let's see, it's ridiculously bright. So let's do like 0.005. For whatever reason, it doesn't like to show up, but if I were to go into an actual render here in Karma, you can see that it is rendering out with those materials and everything. It is a little dark, but that's okay. So I just want to quickly show you guys the power of using USD. So if you look down here in the scene graph tree, you've got absolutely everything, and you can see exactly what it is. So we've got area light. It's a rectangular light, which is how Houdini engine implements the area light name in Blender. You've got the audio ports. If I click on that there, you've got the cylinder. You go into wireframe, you can see that it's selected. And yada yada, you've got everything. Now the nice thing too about this is if you come down to the bottom, you've also got materials. So you've got a preview shader there. If I drop down a material library, and a material builder, this is basically you can assign these materials in the material builder and build your own procedural materials like you can in Blender. For instance, I just have some noise and some bump here. That's not going to import into Houdini, but in Houdini you can basically do whatever you like with that. So again, this is just a quick USD exporter tutorial from Blender. It can work to any USD engine. I only really know Houdini's right now. So yeah, that's the video. If you like what you see, drop a like on the video. Leave me a comment saying what you liked about the video, what you want to know more about, and I'll meet you guys in a future video.